We now head over to North County Superior Court in Vista, California, where 45-year-old Diana Lovejoy is about to find out if she's been found guilty of attempting to murder her own husband, Greg Mulvihill.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy.
Lovejoy and local gun instructor Weldon McDavid Jr., with whom she was having an affair, have been charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, assault, and battery. Lovejoy allegedly paid McDavid $2,000 to kill her estranged husband, Greg Mulvihill. Lovejoy and McDavid's plan included luring her husband down a dark road where he encountered McDavid, who then shot him with a rifle. But he survived.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
That bang you heard
Guilty of the crime.
was Lovejoy's head hitting the table after fainting.
I need to take a break.
According to emergency medical technicians, Lovejoy appeared to be overcome by shock. She was unconscious for a time and transported to a hospital and treated. When the hearing resumes, McDavid can only weep, as he's also found guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. A few months later at their sentencing, Lovejoy claims her innocence once again and makes a final plea to the judge.
I still care about Greg, and as much as I did love him. I loved him a lot. And I really cared about him, and I still care about Greg. Would never take Kale's father away from him. I would never be able to do that.
Despite the emotional words, the judge hands Lovejoy a sentence of 26 years to life behind bars. As for McDavid, the trigger man, he receives a sentence of 50 years to life. Next, we go to Memphis, Tennessee, for the verdict in the case against Shelby Isaac. The 19-year-old's accused of first-degree murder in the death of Eddie Tate and his girlfriend Edwina Thomas, who was 8 weeks pregnant at the time. The alleged motive? A bad hair week. Nearly 2 years earlier, Isaac bought $250 worth of hair extensions from Tate. Apparently upset with the purchase, Isaac scheduled a second meeting to get her money back. And according to testimony of a witness who claimed to be there at the time, that's when she allegedly shot and killed the victims. But the defense pointed to the lack of physical evidence in the case.
When you follow the credible and unbiased evidence in this case, it does not lead you to Shelby Isaac.
After hearing all the evidence, the jury returned with a verdict.
Has the jury arrived at a verdict in this case? All four counts? Were they unanimous?
If Isaac is found guilty, she could spend the rest of her life in prison.
Ms. Isaac, please stand.
Judge James Lammy reads the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder as included in count one. Signed by the foreperson of the jury. Mr. Aldridge, is that your verdict? Ms. Foster, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Of second-degree murder as included in count one. Signed by the foreperson of the jury.
Upon hearing the news, Isaac collapses to the floor. Meanwhile, the judge doesn't skip a beat as he individually polls the jurors and moves on to the next count.
Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? And
As the court staff tends to Isaac, who remains on the floor, the judge continues to carry on with the business at hand.
is that your verdict, sir? Is that your verdict, sir? Yes, sir. Okay. As to count two of the indictment, We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder. Sir, is that your verdict? Your verdict, ma'am?
Yes.
Your verdict, ma'am?
Yes.
Your verdict? Your verdict? Your verdict? Your verdict, sir? Yes, sir. Your verdict? Your verdict? Yes, sir. Your verdict. As to count 3, that was count 4, I'm sorry, excuse me. In count 4, a criminally negligent homicide is included in count 4. Is that your verdict, ma'am?
After a few minutes, as the judge continues, Isaac lets out a scream and pleads for help.
Your verdict? Well, ladies and gentlemen.
Isaac is convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder, reckless homicide, and criminally negligent homicide of the unborn baby. She's sentenced to 30 years in a state penitentiary and won't be eligible for release until the year 2040, when she'll be 42 years old.
The people of the state of Michigan have proven each of these counts.
We're in Muskegon, Michigan for the trial of Robert G. The 31-year-old was charged with numerous crimes, including murder, following an incident that began outside this bar. 8 months earlier, G's friend Deshaun Boylan stole a car from the bar's parking lot, as briefly seen in the security video. Outside, 26-year-old Jake Ramo saw his brother's car being stolen, so he sprang into action. Tossing his jacket aside, he jumped on his motorcycle and sped after the carjacker. Unknown to Ramo, he was also being pursued by a car with Robert Gee inside. Just a few blocks from the bar, Gee allegedly leaned out the window of the moving car and shot Ramo in the back, causing him to crash his motorcycle in the yard of a homeowner who called 911.
What's going on there?
Some guy that shot off his motorcycle in my yard.
He's laying in your yard?
Yeah, he's out.
We do have the fire department and ambulance and the police en route, okay?
Ramo would die at the scene of the accident before paramedics arrived. The evidence is enough for Judge Hicks to find Gee guilty of first-degree murder.
The people of the state of Michigan have proven each of these counts: open murder, felony firearm, felon possession of a weapon.
As you can hear, emotion is building in the gallery following that guilty verdict.
And the second felony firearm count beyond a reasonable doubt.
Before Judge Hicks can finish speaking, the courtroom erupts. What caused the outburst from the gallery? It started when Gee first appeared woozy and rests his head on the table. Members of his family believe he's having a medical issue and could faint in his chair. As the deputy checks on Gee, who appears responsive, some of his family members are removed from the courtroom. Moments later, Judge Hicks tries to continue with the proceeding.
The court says this.
But is interrupted again by the screaming outside the courtroom. Finally, things settle down, just in time for the family's concerns to be realized, as the defendant passes out in his chair.
We're gonna leave the courtroom, Your Honor.
Okay. We're gonna take Mr. Gee out of the courtroom? All right.
Come on, Robert. Yeah, that's it.
Robert Gee would return to the courtroom under his own power to complete the hearing. He was later sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder of Jake Ramo. As for Deshaun Boylan, who stole Ramo's brother's car and set the entire chain of events in motion, he was found guilty of first-degree felony murder in perpetration of a larceny and was also sentenced to life in prison without parole. Next, we go to Omaha, Nebraska, for the sentencing of former Dr. Anthony Garcia, the man responsible for a string of murders that had become known as the Creighton Killings. In 2008, Garcia went to the home of his ex-boss, Dr. William Hunter, seeking revenge against the man who fired him from his Creighton University residency 7 years earlier. There, Garcia stabbed and killed both the doctor's 11-year-old son, Thomas, and housekeeper Shirley Sherman. The case went unsolved until 2013, when Garcia returned to Omaha, this time killing Dr. Roger Brumbach, another former Creighton employer, as well as his wife, Mary. Garcia was charged with 4 counts of murder and multiple weapons charges, and in 2016, found guilty on all charges. Prosecutors in his case are seeking the maximum penalty for Garcia, death.
State of Nebraska versus Anthony Garcia.
2 years later, as Garcia appears before a panel of judges to learn his sentence, the man is asleep, or at least pretending to be asleep, even while several family members deliver heartfelt impact statements to the court.
We've heard a lot from the press, especially about after today, we'll finally get closure. When you have a loved one taken from you in such a vicious, inhumane manner, that'll never happen.
Young child of 11 3/4 years should never have to innocently lose his life in a fit of anger.
I'm left with constant images from courtroom photos of my mom laying there in a pool of her own blood with an 8-inch butcher knife hanging out her neck. I can't get those images ever out of my head.
While Garcia still looks as if he's napping, District Judge Rick Schreiner addresses the court.
The defendant traveled from his home in Indiana to Omaha, Nebraska to commit 4 murders on 2 separate occasions. Those facts suggest lengthy premeditation and an exceptionally depraved mentality. The defendant had 5 years to reflect on the gruesomeness of the first 2 murders before he returned to Omaha to commit 2 more murders. He had no remorse after the first 2 murders. In fact, he bragged about them.
As the judge moves to sentence him, Garcia remains still.
The defendant now stands convicted of 4 murders.
Until finally, he shows some slight movement.
The panel finds that a sentence of death is not excessive. It is therefore ordered as to count 1 murder in the first degree, that a sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant, Anthony Garcia.
Not even a sentence of death can wake the slumbering Garcia.
Mr. Garcia, you are remanded to the custody of the Douglas County Sheriff for execution of this sentence.
Altogether, Garcia receives 136 years for the weapons charges and a spot on death row at the Tecumseh State Correctional Facility.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
We head to Ukraine, where a defendant pushes himself to the brink physically to protest the government putting him on trial. That defendant is Yaruslav Terasenko, accused of orchestrating the murder of Denis Voronenkov, a state official and vocal critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The defendant is not charged with pulling the trigger, but driving the vehicle used in the murder plot. Today, the defendant, who's been held for several months, is at a hearing with one of his alleged co-conspirators, Alexander Los. Terasenko pleaded not guilty, claims he's being set up by the Ukrainian government. And if he looks utterly exhausted, it's because he's on a self-imposed hunger strike and hasn't eaten in 15 days.
На каких правах я сижу уже год, и мне инкриминируют то, к чему я не причастен? До чего доходить? Я не знаю, к кому обращаться.
As the tension in the room builds, Los appeals to the court to turn their attention to his comrade, who appears to be struggling.
Уважаемый судья, он просто 15 дней уже в голодовке. Прошу на это обратить внимание.
He's attempting to get Terasenko medical attention, but having no luck.
Вызывали сегодня скорую, но нас проигнорировали. Не знаю почему, поэтому... Вы одни камеры? Нет, порознь. Только в боксе. Порознь. Только в боксе.
Terasenko hits the floor with a resounding thud. Court officials quickly step in.
Візьміть воду. Бризкайте. Нова вода. Швидку викликайте.
Ну вызывали сегодня скорую. Почему?
He's eventually revived, and after getting the medical attention Los requested earlier, he's returned to his cell to await trial.